Hey, history lovers and curious minds. Think you know the truth about history? Think again. From Napoleon's so-called short stature to Albert Einstein's supposed struggles in math, history is full of myths we grew up believing, but which just aren't true. Today, we're diving deep to debunk 12 common historical myths that your school books, movies, and even the internet have fed you. And finally get to the truth. Buckle up. It's time to separate fact from fiction. Myth 1, Napoleon was short. Let's kick off with a classic, Napoleon Bonaparte. You've heard he was tiny, right? Like pocket-sized dictator? Actually, Napoleon was about 5 feet 7 inches tall, roughly 1.69 meters, which was average height for a Frenchman of his era. The myth that he was super short came partly from British propaganda during the Napoleonic Wars. His opponents wanted to make him look small in every way, literally and figuratively. Adding to the confusion was a difference in measuring units. French inches were longer than British ones, so reports of his height varied. Fun fact, his nickname in France was Le Petit Caporal, the Little Corporal. But that was more an affectionate term for his leadership style, not his size. So the next time someone calls someone Napoleon short, just tell them, he was no tiny tyrant, just an average-sized genius strategist. Myth 2. Vikings wore horned helmets. If you picture Vikings, you probably imagine giant, fierce warriors sporting helmets with huge curved horns. But here's the truth. Vikings never wore horned helmets in battle. This popular image is actually a 19th century invention, popularized by costume designers in Richard Wagner's operas, who wanted to add drama and flair to the characters. Archaeologists have found plenty of Viking helmets. And guess what? None have horns. Horned helmets would have been terrible for fighting. They'd get caught in trees or make you a target. So, those intimidating horned helmets? Just theatrical props, not history. Myth 3, Einstein failed math. You may have heard that Albert Einstein flunked math as a kid. This is absolutely false. In fact, Einstein was a math prodigy, mastering calculus by the age of 12. His schooling records show he excelled in math and physics. Where did this myth come from? Probably from misinterpretations of his school report cards or misunderstandings by biographers. Einstein even joked that he could do differential and integral calculus in his head. So the next time you're struggling with math, remember, the guy who revolutionized physics was already a math genius as a kid. Myth 4. People thought the Earth was flat in Columbus's time. Here's a big one. Did people in the 1400s really believe the Earth was flat? Nope. By the time Christopher Columbus set sail in 1492, educated Europeans had known the Earth was round for over 1,000 years. Ancient Greek philosophers like Pythagoras and Aristotle had already demonstrated the Earth's roundness as early as 500 BCE. Even in the Middle Ages, scholars taught the Earth as a sphere. Columbus wasn't trying to prove the Earth was round. He just underestimated how big it was, thinking Asia was much closer going west than it actually is. So the flat Earth story is just a myth, likely popularized in the 19th century to make Columbus look braver. Myth 5, Marie Antoinette said, "Let them eat cake." One of the most infamous quotes attributed to Marie Antoinette is, "Let them eat cake." The phrase implies she was so out of touch with her people's suffering that she suggested poor people eat cake when they couldn't afford bread. But there's zero evidence she ever said this. The phrase actually appears in the autobiography of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, written when Marie was just a child. Historians believe it was propaganda used to demonize the Queen during the French Revolution. So Marie Antoinette didn't say it, but the phrase has stuck as a symbol of aristocratic indifference. Myth 6, George Washington had wooden teeth. You probably heard that George Washington's teeth were made of wood. In reality, they weren't. Washington did have dental problems and wore dentures, but they were made of materials like human teeth, animal teeth, ivory, and metal. Wood would have been too fragile and absorbed water, causing discomfort. Washington's dentures were uncomfortable, causing his famously tight-lipped smile. But the wooden teeth story is a myth that stuck for some reason. Imagine the dentist bills back then. Myth 7. The Great Wall of China is visible from space. This one's a classic trivia fact. Is the Great Wall of China visible from space? The answer? Not really. While the Great Wall is thousands of miles long, it's very narrow and made of materials that blend into the natural landscape. Astronauts say it's nearly impossible to see with the naked eye from low Earth orbit, let alone from the moon. So the idea that the Great Wall is the only man-made structure visible from space is just a myth, but a cool one. Myth 8. Chameleons change color to camouflage. Chameleons are famous for changing colors, but not primarily for camouflage. They actually change color to regulate body temperature, communicate with other chameleons, or show emotional states like stress or mating readiness. For example, a dark chameleon is absorbing heat, while a bright one might be signaling dominance or attracting a mate. So they're not masters of disguise, they're just very expressive reptiles. Myth 9. The Salem witch trials burned witches at the stake. When you hear witch trials, you might imagine people being burned at the stake. But in the 1692 Salem witch trials, none of the accused were actually burned. Most were hanged, and one man was pressed to death with heavy stones. Burning witches was more common in European witch hunts. Salem's witch trials were tragic and unjust, but no fire pyres were involved. Myth 10. Gladiators fought to the death every time. Gladiator fights in ancient Rome? Bloodbaths every time. Not quite. Gladiators were valuable investments, trained fighters who often survived multiple bouts. Many matches ended when one fighter surrendered or the editor, referee, decided to stop the fight. Rome loved drama, but not all fights were fatal. Think of gladiators like today's athletes, risking injury but not death in every game. Myth 11. Newton discovered gravity when an apple hit his head. The famous story says Isaac Newton discovered gravity when an apple fell and hit him on the head. Truth is, the apple likely just fell near him, inspiring him to think about why objects fall. Newton's genius came from the years of study, not a single apple-to-the-head moment. Still, it's a charming story that makes science feel more relatable. Myth 12. Napoleon shot the Sphinx's nose off. Another Napoleon myth. Some say he shot off the Great Sphinx's nose with a cannonball during his Egyptian campaign. In fact, the nose was missing long before Napoleon arrived. Theories suggest it was damaged by iconoclasts or weathered away centuries earlier. So Napoleon didn't vandalize this ancient wonder. Sorry to disappoint. So there you have it. 12 common history myths busted. History is way more interesting when you know the real stories behind the legends. Which one surprised you the most? Drop a comment below and let's get the conversation started. If you enjoyed this deep dive, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss your daily dose of fascinating facts here on Interestingly Quick. Thanks for watching, and remember, stay curious, stay quick, and keep questioning what you think you know.